So maybe one of the questions that we can actually start with is, have we ever used AI before? Yeah? And at least we are sure. I was actually telling Lema that at times we need to actually be able to make sure that we know exactly when we say AI that all of us understand it's artificial intelligence. We understand it like that way, right? I'm so sure Lennox is here and he's just laughing because we're actually having this conversation. And most of the time we actually just think about AI, we need to make sure that we are in the same context. So, how many today used AI? Today? How many came with an Uber? How many have used an Uber before? Do you know it actually uses AI? Yeah? Route optimization? Yeah? What are some of these factors that come in when it comes to route optimization? Traffic? What else? Location, distance, and all that, yeah? And just yesterday, I was reading something about how even some of these factors that are actually influencing the way we actually maybe the optimization of even the cab apps. A lot of things actually come into place. Even something as simple as a battery getting low. A low battery is actually still a factor, which is really interesting because I've never thought of it coming into play. The question is it ethical? Ethics, business. Yeah? But before we actually go all that way, are we scared? Is it an existential risk that you're going to actually face in the coming future? Walu can actually tell us, but Walu Bengo, is it an existential risk? Why do you say that?
Well, from where I sit, I think it will not be the end of the world, but there'll be a couple of us who sort of control most of the AI systems, and the rest of us will be sort of waiting for their command and control. It's actually happening on social media. I was, debating on Twitter the other day that I noticed that when Elon Musk took over Twitter, the kind of content I'm receiving is slightly different than before. So it's like whoever is controlling the Twitter algorithm woke up one morning and decided to change them. And the rest of us just...
It actually worked miracles for them. The question is, why do you want to actually just bring in, just be able to just, how do you call it? You're actually mapping something from the global north and bringing it to the global south. Do we have the same issues? The issues maybe could be the same. Issues maybe could be the same, but maybe the context is actually different. Yeah? So we have to actually now think, this is a particular space. So now when you are that particular person who's supposed to give solutions, contextualized solutions, which are going to be simple problem that you've actually understood as a root about AI in different regions of the world by 2030. It's there. And I also, just looking at how we are actually evolving, I can actually say that we are wrongly misrepresented there. Are we agreeing? Walubengo, do you agree? Lema, do you agree? Laura, do you agree? Do you agree? Tevin, do you agree? Because right now, we have started using AI. I was having a discussion with Lennox, and he was actually telling me how they've actually used AI. Yeah? So question is, how comes we are not even seeing a small dot in Africa? Is it because we have not embraced data sovereignty? Is it because that we do not have enough data? Is it because that we are not collecting our own data? How many are wearing Fitbits right now, smartwatches? Where is that data going to? Yeah? So can we, because you said it's going to Asia or where it's actually going, are we in this room ready to support an AI startup that is going to actually come up with a smartphone that is going to be able to have our own data in Africa or also or actually maybe here in Kenya. Are we ready? How many are willing to support? I can actually bring you students who want to actually bring out, yeah? Who want to actually start up a startup, come up with a startup. But that needs to change. By the time in the next like 6 years, we need to actually be in that particular map. Okay? When it comes to data systems that Lema has talked about, are we ready to finance those data systems? We are going to have a billion, 1.5 billion structure coming up. Is it Nanyuki or Nakuru? Yes, one of those, I can't remember where. Yeah? That is actually going to actually be built. Question is, how are we also supporting Konza? There's still a data center there. Okay? So we need to embrace ourselves. We need to agree we are Africans and we need to actually build for us. Right? Until we agree that, we cannot say that we are going to be able to actually solve our problems here in Africa, unless you do not want to solve them. We want at least something that is going to be sustainable, something that is going to actually be impactful in maybe our own generation and also generations to come, okay? So, the translators behind there, are they translators? Yes. Are their jobs going to be taken away? And they are not happy. But the question is, there is something that I've always heard before I actually ask the particular question. They say that AI is not going to take your job away. The person who knows how to use AI will take your job away. So question is, are you upskilling? Look at the process, maybe in what you actually do in your workspace. Do you feel like one day the machine can actually take over? Do you feel that way? The camera guys, do you feel like one day, yeah? So what are you doing about it? Are you upskilling? At times, are you even skilling? Because it means that maybe you have to actually change completely. Yeah? So when it comes to the job bit of it, as much as we would want to actually like bring ourselves to some areas, we can actually relate to the last two. Yes, we might be the emerging market, but look at the low-income countries. When it comes to exposure, we are a bit low. And most of the time, the reason why we can actually argue in that particular space is because, first of all, the data that is there, not ours. Or even if it's ours, it's not in our own continent, okay? The data systems that we have, not powerful enough. We're talking about compute, we're talking about crazy compute times. That means millions and, not even millions, billions. I heard Jensen talk about it's only taking a few dollars, and this guy was talking about something that is also almost $500,000. For them, that is not much for them. But for us, can we actually afford that? Okay? So, for this particular case, question data systems. But now also the bit of, as much as we're talking about the skilling bit of it, the job markets bit of it, we also need to actually just think about the support system. So what are some of the jobs that have high potential? I think I've skipped something. Okay, have high potential before augmentation, of being completely taken over by AI. Jobs that are repetitives. When you go to a manufacturing, they call car manufacturing industries. Who is actually assembling the cars? Is it humans? It's actually machines doing that. It's a repetitive task. Right? Yeah? So repetitive tasks are at risk of being fully automated. But what actually happens is that each and every time you go to a business, to a manager, and actually tell them that, oh, here we can actually reduce on the match that you're actually giving out. So for this particular case, salary is going out, and we can actually be able to actually have this machine that is working throughout. It never gets tired. What does the business person, the manager do? I'll actually say, let's automate. Right? Yeah? So that's the reason why each and every time you can be able to foresee that you can actually be automated, kindly skill, upskill, reskill, multi-skill. Okay? Then, so here we have jobs that have potential for, oh yeah, it was actually that, jobs that have potential for augmentation. So these ones, when you look at these, someone like the health practitioners, right now we're having the medic world in Kenya are actually on strike, unless a consensus has actually come into play and have not. Yeah, they're still on strike, okay? But what is actually happening? We are not seeing any machines, any robots in the hospitals, right? Yeah, so that means this is a space that we cannot say that we have fully automate. It still needs human beings, okay? So the bit of also education. I love, there's a certain company that is doing a lot with VR. VR is not really AI. It's actually an immersive technology, but it actually also still incorporate, it can actually be able to bring in AI into it. So they're actually doing in a primary school in some place known as Kangemi. Here in Kenya, they are trying to, as much as possible, to give these children an immersive experience of the coastal region. So these kids cannot be able to go to the coast because they cannot afford. So what they've actually done is that they brought in this coastal experience using VR. So we're actually asking if this can actually happen, and you're actually seeing the kids, even the performance actually going high, because you're like, if this is the coastal experience and I'm just like immersing in it virtually, it will actually go to that particular space. So what actually happens is that it actually boosts. So how can you also be able to still use VR to actually have even something like a personalized kind of learning for these particular kids, okay? So in education, is still be able to actually do that. So let's look at examples of where AI has actually like thrived. Before I go to AI in health, Lennox, I'll actually just ambush you a bit. I had a discussion with this gentleman just before we started this session, and there's something interesting he told me about how they've actually used AI in the agriculture space. Would actually love to actually hear a use case in Kenya, right? Right? Let's hear from him.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm called Lennox Ochieng. I'm agri-economist by training. So for us here in Kenya, most of you know we had the invasion of desert locust, sometimes in 2019, 2020, and 2021. So I was privileged to be one of the young professionals who was deployed in that program. So this is how we managed to control desert locust, and I know most of you used to see it on television. You don't know how we controlled it. So we actually applied AI to monitor the movement of desert locust invasion. So we will actually put chips in one of the locusts that probably we had estimated that the life cycle was not coming to an end. So in Samburu, in Marsabit, where there was insecurity, we'll sit back in our computers. Once we've attached the chips, we'll actually monitor and see where they will roost. Roost in insect means they sleep. So normally, those kind of insects, they normally roost in the evening. And then in the morning, once they busted in the sun, they get energy to fly away. So we'll actually monitor them until in the evening through the chips that are attached to 1 or 2, 3. Of course, we used to use a maximum of 50. And then in the morning, we will know where they roosted. So we'll actually take the coordinates that have been signaled from the chips, and then we give the pilot, and then the pilot being, he will not look down there during the spraying. We also consider the safety of the people down there, the sensitive areas, so that we don't apply those unsafe pesticide on sensitive areas. He'll actually go using the aircraft And once the coordinates are there, then he'll be able to spray. So that is how we manage to control desert locust in East Africa, the first in across continent. Yeah, so that is what we manage. And that was the application of AI. Another practical application of AI in farming that we've been actually employing is where we actually advise farmers who are in the rural areas, because you know the last time the government employed extension service providers was in 97. And actually the county government up to now, we are shortage of extension farmers. And most of farmers, of course we know farming by art, not by science. So we normally advise farmers. Majority of farmers have a smartphone, so they'll actually install specific apps that can monitor their crops. So we advise them, they scan. Once you scan, you'll actually identify the disease that is affecting your crop. Once that has been done, you'll be told this is the kind of disease, because probably a farmer might not know which kind of disease it is. You'll be told this is the disease, and this disease is cured using this particular pesticide. And that particular pesticide, you'll actually be directed where to get it, depending on the nearest agro dealer. So that is actually application of AI in farming. Of course, we have so many examples that we can give, but because of time, those are the two that we've been able to adapt as Kenya.
That is a use case that is in Kenya. So do we still believe that we can actually apply or rather deploy AI in different spaces? Right? If it's working in that particular space, and you see now for this case, it's able to tell like now be able to tell like no much in within the particular landscape. And also, as I give it to him to actually give us maybe another example, yeah, that bit, the last bit that he actually talked about, is computer vision. And that is mostly what you actually like here in AI and healthcare when it actually comes to even imaging of even maybe cancerous cells. Yes.
Thank you for everybody. I'm sorry if I didn't speak English very well, because I came from a francophone country, Mauritania. I'm from the Data Protection Authority. I have been an AI practitioner for a while in Southeast Asia. And now we have example, you know, as I know in Mauritania, actually we have a system in our authority. It's a power system that the person who processes data have to open account on it. So we will be giving them the guidance and everything to be conform with the law. But we see that is not enough. So we have to bring out the other side, the concerned people, whose their data is processed by those companies. So I developed, me and some friend in the authority. It's 100% the authority internal development. So I used a chatbot. I used the Raza framework because we have bilingual language, so we make it in Arabic and in French. So people can complain through this chatbot. So when you chat with it, it will be giving you all the information about the law. Everything about consent, everything about your rights as a person whose your data is processed, everything in the law in your rights, you can chat with this chatbot to tell you, to educate you. So it's like a customer service 24 hours. But at the same time, I developed a form, Raza form. Everybody is, when he's an AI practitioner, he would know the framework AI. It's neural language processing framework. So when he complains, he will be giving the name of the company that he's complaining about, and his name and the relation between him and this company. So we will cross, in the morning, this company will have the complaint directly in their account. So you have been violating the law concerning this data, and that's why this is make us like an authority, because we are the referee. We can see you, please do this between you and him, or not, we will go to the court. So now in whole the country, everybody is allowed to do a complaint by simple, you know, keyboards, tapings, and directly you will receive as soon as possible through AI application. So this is one of the examples that I do in Africa. I have many in Southeast Asia and all in the world. I have been part of it, but the time also is not helping, and we're talking to Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for him. This reminds me of still ODPC doing something. And Tevin, I'm sorry, I just have to call you up here. There's something that ODPC has actually done, the chatbot. You can actually just come and just tell us of something just small about it.
Hi everyone. Disclaimer, I don't work for DPC, but I see Oscar is here. so in case I miss anything, Oscar will talk about it. So my name is Tevin, and I work for GIZ, the German Development Corporation, where we work with a number of stakeholders, mostly with the ODPC on a number of stuff. So last year, I guess there's something we embarked on AI, and maybe it gives a good application of how AI can be used on public service. And the idea was to try and see, what is the application of AI in public service? Can you integrate AI into public service delivery? And actually, I see Amos, the head of ICT ODPC who we worked with. So Amos, please come join me here in case I forget anything. So please, a round of applause for Amos. See what he allowed us to do it. So Amos, please come here in case I forget anything. On the technical bits, I don't have a technical background. So what we did is we decided to do a little bit of an experiment with the ODPC's office, and that was to create an AI-powered chatbot to enable them deliver their services. So they have an AI-powered chatbot that's able to speak English, Swahili, and a bit of Swanglish. So in Kenya, you know it as Sheng, but not the deep Sheng, not the other Sheng. It's just the Swanglish. Yeah, and we launched it this January, and we've just been trying it. So it's part of a process we were doing, because we also did the same with the business registration services. For Kenyans who know, it's the portal that you use for registering companies. So it was the first government agency that we worked with to develop an AI chatbot for them. And now we are doing interesting research with that one, where we are working with actually, I think it's Masinde Muliro University, a lecturer there, to see how Kenyans interact with chatbots. It's very interesting how Kenyans interact with chatbots, and the kind of how they ask it in Sheng. How do you register a company, and trying to figure out. And now with the ODPC, since we launched January, it's more of taking it through its paces, seeing how it's working. Amos, maybe you can speak more to that as well.
Thank you very much, Tevin, and good afternoon, everyone. As you've heard, my name is Amos Kosgei. I'm the head of ICT at the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. And with the support from the Tevin's team, that is GIZ, we were able to become the first government institution in terms of leveraging AI for public good. And basically, the focus of our chatbot was informed by the need when the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner came to operation. And there was a huge need for sensitization on matters, data protection in an efficient way. And that's why we came to think of a concept of how we can leverage technology in an efficient way, in a cost-efficient way, and in a way that's able to offer a wide coverage in terms of sensitization. So that was our focus. And what the chatbot does is basically, it's a domain expert on matters data protection. It's built from the local content as spelled out in the Data Protection Act. We ensure that we simplify the act as well as the regulation in the simplest manner, and we translate it, because majorly, in as much as we speak about Data Protection Act, there is quite a number of people, especially those who are coming from the rural setup. Kenya, we are known for use of the mobile money. And you go to the rural setup, I can assure you, 8 years old granny is able to transact on a mobile phone. And that's why Tevin is telling us, we build on English, then translate it to Swahili. And then we are building it incrementally to bring it into the local dialect, based also on what he said. You go to Maseno, I think they've built something on AI called Ken Corpus. It's basically a corpus of languages in the local dialect that's trying to solve the issues of the local people in the rural setup. So that's also the spirit in terms of innovation, by leveraging on AI. So ODPC is one of the examples. And if you find time, in our exhibition booths, we are demonstrating the capabilities of the chatbot. Please find time to visit, interact with the bot. The link also is bot.odpc.go.ke. Interact. The feedback we get from you will help us to improve, build a better bot, increase the confidence level for purpose of adding value by use of the AI. So that's basically an overview of what we are doing as ODPC in terms of AI.
Thank you. Thank you. Pardon?
Basically, in terms of the platform that we use, it's basically an open source platform, because we're also looking at the sustainability post-implementation. Because majorly you implement a system, one of the key issues that you should look at, we don't want to get into a situation whereby we spend a lot of money building, implementing a system, but post-implementation, there's an issue of licensing, the issue of struggling to keep up with the cost of maintaining it. And that's why we went for the open source platform. So basically, it's quite a combination of quite a number of platforms which takes care of the machine learning and the natural language processing among many other capabilities and features. So due to the interest of time, you are still free to interact with us, ask as many questions as you can while we are demonstrating at the exhibition booth. Thank you.
Maybe the last use case in Kenya, and I'm not looking at Lema because Lema is showing me time. Maybe the last use case. Let's hear what Amnesty is doing.
Good afternoon. I'll be speaking in English. My name is Irungo Houghton. I work with Amnesty International, one of the 70 sections across the world that do human rights protection work, and I'm sure somewhere close to every one of you there is an Amnesty. So we had an interesting experience about a year ago. Our team in Colombia used AI to generate images of protesters that were on the streets in different cities across Colombia, but they wanted to protect the identities of the protesters, so they generated these artificial creatures, these humans, and it backlashed completely because it was obviously picked up very quickly as false images or other generated images, and we were accused of disinformation. So we had spent the next 6 months basically developing a policy. At the Kenya level, one of the things that we thought about was, and you know, international organizations, sometimes policies take a long time to develop, right? So about a month after that exercise, I asked the team, about 25 staff in Nairobi, I said to them, how many of you are using artificial intelligence? And everybody put up their hand. Right, so I was a bit surprised here that you are saying that most of you are not yet using it, except for you Uber users. So just to give you a sense, we use it a lot in the workplace. And there are probably like 5 areas that we've been experimenting. Creative design. We use lots of interesting design technology like Canva and others to produce images that are attractive to social media and other users. We use it a lot for research and analytics. We're particularly interested in the use of AI to generate an understanding of membership trends. So we're a membership organization. So when you start dealing with thousands and thousands of members, getting a sense of what they're interested in, what kind of campaigns they want to work on, what human rights violations they want to protect is very important. And that the AI basically helps us to do that a bit better. And then, of course, everybody in this room, I suspect, is using Grammarly. No. So when you type something and your machine says, how about finishing it, this sentence this way? Are you seeing that at all? No? Okay. Look up something called Grammarly. It's really helpful. A lot of my stuff and my own writing has improved dramatically because of that. And then the last one is, of course, is project management and automation. I think that's the other area that's there. So I really encourage people to step into this world very powerfully because I think it is not something to fear. I mean, there was, I think, a gentleman 3 years ago who declared in the case of the digital ID project that we had in Kenya, not the current one, but the previous one under the previous administration, that it was the mark of the devil and that artificial intelligence was really satanic. He has now been arrested, and if I can just be a bit more sober in that comment, he has now been arrested for essentially converting and convincing up to about 500 people to commit mass suicide in Shakahola. So if you're going in that direction of satanic verses and all those kind of things, consider you may be heading in the wrong direction. That's Paul Mackenzie, for those of you who are in Kenya. Thank you.
So let's go back to this map. With all those cases, use cases, in 2024, are we still going to have that map empty? Are we? So are we going to have a collaborative effort to make that map have a good dot? Yes? Yeah? Okay, good. So I don't need to actually have to go through now this, because we've actually had some of the cases in them. And definitely, when you're actually looking at the SDG, there's a lot that we actually can be able to actually do in that particular space. Okay, from SDG 1 all the way to SDG 17, there's a lot we can actually be able to do in that particular space using AI. So as we come to a close, so at least the government one, we've actually had, sorry, what am I doing? At least for the government one, okay, sorry. At least for the government, we've actually had what the government is actually doing. Yeah. There's this word that each and every time I'm always being told what it means, but I do not know why I forget. Swanglish, where they say niaje bazoo. I need to, bazoo needs to stick in my head. And I'm seeing young people, bazoo, what does bazoo mean? Yeah, bazenga. Yeah, that is Swanglish now. Is that Swanglish? That's Sheng, right? So that's definitely now just picking up from the different now, what kind of corpuses are we actually having in this particular systems, okay? This particular systems, okay? So we actually want to end this with an interactive session. And we're going to actually ask you some questions that you can actually use Mentimeter and be able to actually like just respond to it. We only have 2 of those particular questions. But I'm not really sure if we go to this first, or maybe there are questions that maybe, do you have a Q&A? Okay. Okay. Yes, we can actually have a Q&A as we go through the particular process. So maybe anyone with a question or a comment? Okay. Can I start with the ladies? Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for that masterclass. It was brief and to the point. It was not intense. My name is Tabitha Wangeshi. I'm the founder of Digital Rurals, and my question would be to academics in the room. How are we integrating AI into the education system? Because if we talk about being left behind, we need to ask ourselves if we're in the right position to even compete with the people that, you know, we say are leaving us behind. If you really want to move ahead with the trend, we need to set that pace. Also, I believe maybe the legislators in the room, you know, try and push those policies that allow artificial intelligence to be included in the curriculum, even from the young age, because we know even in China, kids are learning robotics and machine learning. So why not our kids in primary school, they start learning about AI and ChatGPT? Thank you.
The reason why I'm laughing is because I'm in academia myself also. And we actually just looked at each other with Walu, but I'll let Walubengo actually answer that. But just for a brief, for me, I'm actually allowing my students to actually use ChatGPT, because that's one of the things that they actually use. When you talk about AI in universities, they actually use much of ChatGPT. But I know the handwriting of ChatGPT. So question is, can you be able to actually like bring out an argument with ChatGPT? I've actually given a cut, which is an open cut, and I need to actually see an argument coming out from that. So we are using that. Maybe Walubengo, are you using ChatGPT?
Thank you, Doc. I think you're the younger lecturers. It's quite an interesting debate, and the old school lecturers don't want to hear about ChatGPT, and they're trying to fight it. I happen to be in between. I'm old, but I think like the young lecturers. I have no problem with ChatGPT, but I appreciate the sort of, I don't know whether to call it dangers, because I would give homework. I usually teach networking. So one of my sort of difficult session is something called subnetting, you know, how to divide networks using a lot of mathematics. So that homework used to take a week. But now when I gave it, it takes 1 minute. And it's correct. In fact, it's more correct than my marking scheme. So there is a little bit of challenge there in terms of, are we then teaching if we allow our students to use ChatGPT? And my argument is that we shouldn't stop. As she said, you can't stop it. Technology cannot be stopped. It's up to the old lecturers to rethink their assessment methods, because the technology is here and it's not going anywhere. Thank you.
Maybe a legislator in the room. One of the things, there's a paper that we've actually done known as Made in Africa. There's a perspective where we actually bring out an argument where we're saying we are not yet ready to regulate AI. Yeah? Because we feel, and that's now where we're actually like coming from, we actually feel like if you regulate it now, we stifle innovation. And what actually happens is that, like now, a very good example is M-Pesa. If M-Pesa was regulated in 2007, would not be where we are right now. Okay, so can you actually build an ecosystem first? Can you actually have an adoption rate that is actually incremental? And I'll say, hey, now let's regulate this particular bit. Yeah. There was a question somewhere here.
Thank you. My name is Leon Wakoli, working with Solidaridad. I think my question, you've kind of touched on it, especially around regulation. And the fact that we haven't reached the dominant design currently, we are still in the incremental design where we are optimizing the process as we keep on testing to get to the dominant design, and consider that there are competition between Microsoft and Google around that in order to get to that level. My question was, at what point exactly should we regulate? And also to what he mentioned around open source. Because as much as we are using open source, there was an issue around security and privacy. Assuming you're using Llama 2 for your modeling, basically you're exposing this data to these companies that are developing open source. So how are you ensuring that even you as the government, as much as you're using chatbot to provide information, how are you ensuring that you're fencing this information, that it doesn't go to countries that are not regulated based on our standards? Thank you.
Okay, let him answer the bit of open source. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the question. It's a good question. And I'll answer based on the perspective of what I gave an overview of in terms of what we did. For us, we were so keen on what we are building because, like said, it's too early to regulate AI, and there are quite a number of risks as well as the benefits. For us, we did a quick analysis as part of the things that we look at as a regulator in terms of what project we need to undertake. There's usually what we call data protection impact assessment. And from what we build for us, the bots that we are actually using doesn't collect any personal data. So it's basically for purpose of informational purposes. So I could say it's AI for informational purposes. And then it comes to where you are coming from in terms of open source. Basically what we're also looking at as the regulator is basically subjecting all innovation through a bit of series through what we call a regulatory sandbox, so that by the time we are rolling out, it has met all the regulatory requirements. So I think the same approach the government can adopt in terms of utilizing the AI, so that at the end of the day, in as much as we are saying we are utilizing innovation, we are also compliant at the same time. We're able to meet the objective of innovation as well as compliance without compromising any of the two. I hope that answers. Then when it comes to, there is something that you asked about in terms of maybe exchanging data between jurisdictions. And that, I believe Oscar is in a better position to us to actually respond with regards to the conversation that was in the morning on in terms of what the office is doing towards ensuring the simplified cross-border data transfer in a compliant point of view. So maybe Oscar can chip in for some few seconds with regards to aspect of exchange of data.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Amos. Actually, that's a conversation that we are currently having. Even in this conference, if you look at the theme, we are looking at this cross-border data transfer and all that. It's really difficult to regulate that. But these are conversations that we have started having. Currently, you're talking about these data, how do they call them, with the EU? And we had very good conversations about this guy, Lemmy, from Mastercard, who was trying to tell us how we can regulate all this. So it's something that we are looking at, and hopefully regulations are there, and it's being worked on, all right? Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll only have 2 more questions, and then kindly, we're going to remain behind, and you're going to actually ask as many questions as possible. So let me just start with her, and then I come to you, okay?
Thank you very much. My name is Daphne. I'm a data protection officer within the financial sector. I know we're having conversations of not regulating AI because it is very, very early on, and I agree. However, in coming up with these systems, there are certain issues that we need to put in mind. For example, data security, issues to do with transparency, issues to do with explainability of the AI systems. So in as much as we're saying it's too early to regulate, and I think it could be, however, should we put into place, for example, AI principles? And are we bringing in the regulators into this conversation? Because it's quite a bit technical, and the people who are going to regulate it need to understand it. So as you're creating, are you involving the non-technical persons? Thank you.
So ongoing in terms of Kenya and actually other countries on the continent is that there's an AI strategy framework that's being set up right now. It's different stakeholders coming on board and talking exactly about those things, right? It's transparency, ethics, being able to do explainable AI. So that is ongoing. I won't speak too much about it. Find Tevin. You see that gentleman who was up here? Find him and bugger him about it. And that's also the audio PC, of course. Thank you.
Last question.
Thank you so much. My name is James Mutinda. I'm from Kenya School of Government. My question is, for us to develop meaningful AI applications, we need data, especially now that we are saying AI is starting. And now we are talking about data protection, and you're talking about ODPC. What measures are there to make sure that researchers and these people who are developing these technologies, they are not being, denied the data because of the new protection? Because about 5 years ago, we are talking about open data. Now we are talking about data protection. And now people want to use the data to develop these AI applications. I think it is, in a way, also inhibiting the growth of the AI. Yes.
There's something known as the 3 A's. There's availability, accessibility, and authorization. He actually raised his hand. He's actually under ODPC, can actually answer that. And I'd like to actually hear that from open data to.
So basically, to be specific and straight to the point, from the regulatory perspective, yes, we regulate the aspect of the use of data. But again, like I said, we are also facilitating innovation. What the office has done, it has come up as part of regulatory frameworks with what we call guidance notes for research and statistical use of data. So I believe Oscar can give the right term. What is the exact name for the guidance notes that we recently developed to us to guide in terms of how data will be used from the statistical point of view as well as the research. So it's one of the guidance notes. You visit our website, you'll have. It's part of the frameworks that the office is developing to ensure that in as much as we understand there's quite a lot that happens in the space, research is something that's continuous and it needs to be facilitated, because without data, we cannot get meaningful output from the input of the research. So as a way of facilitating research and development, and the office is also passionate about actually facilitating the same, and that's why it developed a guide and notes. It's among the frameworks. Feel free to visit our website. You will get all those so that at least you're able to appreciate what the office is doing.
Is it satisfactory? Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Hello. Yeah. See, it's to have a good, very good application in AI. You can do it without collecting data and processing it, because there is something that we call synthetic data. So we can generate data that's not real, and based on that we can build the model on top of it, and then we can use also transfer learning. Somebody has get data somewhere, and he can give me that learning to use it in my model. So this model, for example, that can see your temperature, your fever in this, it's not processing. Data Protection Authority cannot, it's not violating the law. Yeah, because it just, it's not data processing in there. And also in the healthcare field, you can use augmenters. For example, if you have X-rays, it's not a personal data here, because there is no name, no print, nothing else. So if you are building something for anomaly detection or something, that if you don't have enough data from the hospital, you can still augment. So we'll zoom, we'll simulate other image for the model to be learned. And also for marketing, one more for marketing and for also things around the model. When, for example, for instance, you are building a priori algorithm, for example, a big, huge supermarket gives me data of customers, but they don't give me personal data. They give me the identity, the customer ID. In their not the ID national ID, is the customer ID with the purchase of this person during like 1 month. And they want me to tell him, for instance, how they can sell more product. So I can process. So for me, if I process this data, there is no personal data in there, and I can process for them, for instance, a priori algorithm to tell them this person, when he buy milk, buy banana, he will buy chocolate. So please make a chocolate near these two goods and put a reduction, so the chocolate will go from there. So it's a kind of example that doesn't interfere with data protection here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Lema?
Thank you so much for that.
Lema?
Yes.
There's one person here that I would love her to speak. Okay. She's actually a regulator. So we have a regulator in the house, yep. A regulator from Ghana. Oh, yes. So let's just hear what Ghana is actually doing when it comes to AI.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to step in because so many questions were coming regarding regulating the AI ecosystem, and I can speak for my sister and colleague, Immaculate Kasai, because I work very closely with her. Ghana, we had a Data Protection Act passed in 2012 and has been working actively in the African ecosystem for a while before Kenya passed their law. I am the immediate past president for the NATPA and the Anglophone lead for Africa. I chose to come to this session because of our interest in the AI ecosystem and what is happening, and the need to be aligned with the innovators and the actors in the ecosystem. And that's why I chose to be in this forum. And as the lead for the Anglophone side of Africa, I am positioning myself and working with the Anglophone African commissioners with the intention of replicating what we are learning across the 54 African countries on matters including AI. Ghana has just drafted our national AI strategy and the ethical use of AI strategy with international partners support and facilitation. We have been brainstorming some of these topics that you're speaking about here. What is open data versus data protection, and what is it going to be like? Should we regulate now? Should we regulate later? These are current topical questions that are being addressed. My position on the matter is that yes, we get in the mix now, because data protection, as you know, it has changed. It is not the traditional data protection where we are so compliance focused and wait for you to fall foul of the act and then sanction you and raise the stick to say, well, yeah, you've gone wrong. It's changed. Data protection is more about accountability, proactive accountability, appropriate access to data, enabling access to data. We are not disablers to data, so you can't just oppose open data and data protection. The whole statement in that question is as if to say that data protection, we talked about open data, and now data protection is coming to disable access to data. It is not the situation at all. In fact, when you look at the pace of technology and its advancement, data protection authorities cannot sit back in our offices and wait for emerging technologies to establish itself with systems and then think, oh, how are we going to regulate? Because we are in the learning process with you all. As you innovate and create, you are learning. Technology is teaching us so much about ourselves and our lives and our culture. And even comparing the ecosystem of Africa to the rest, the global north, there is so much different. There's that what do we call it now? The technical difference there, because of our cultural and the divide, our barriers, language barriers, our internet accessibility challenges, our pace of learning, people's understanding of technology in generally more semi-literate than over there. We have very serious challenges in our region that we need to understand for ourselves. And I like the idea of you saying we're doing things. I'm very Pan-African as well. Doing things from Africa for Africa. In 2019, we had the very first regional data protection conference. This is the second one. In the first regional conference, we began the discussion on AI in that conference. And in that conference, we began to start brainstorming about what it is that Africans need to do for us. And the theme for that conference is data protection from Africans by Africans for Africans. That was the theme in 2019, and we have built upon it. It is since that conference that we got the UN Global Post to support Ghana and Uganda in a kind of pilot exercise to document the ethical use of AI strategy. In that document, we are looking at what it is that we need to do to support you, the innovators and the technical, and people like yourselves who are educating others about AI for Africa to kind of customize it for us. At the same time, we're looking at the data protection law, how to harmonize it for our region such that the interpretation of the requirement meets the creativity that we're working with. We're looking at even a wider scope for innovators. How do we get, for example, tax break for young innovators to be able to create the kind of technology that we need that will be useful to put us on that map, where it gives us some percentages, because we are actually using AI, but we don't want to import AI. We want to create our own AI. AI that regulators can understand, because we've been at the forefront of the data access, manipulation, aggregation, and feeding and teaching of systems with you. So we understand what it is that needs regulating. Currently, we are looking at the principles by which we can develop guidance for the ecosystem, explainability, transparency, and in African terms. And so it's not about us waiting for you to create the system so that we come and regulate it. That, from experience, doesn't work. And we are very lucky in Africa because we have a green slate. For us, it's a greenfield implementation. We are starting. Unlike Europe, where there's a mishmash of technology, everything is happening and they are trying to align with it as technology advances. In Africa, we are in a very good place where we are starting things up for ourselves. And how right would that be for the regulators and supervisory authorities of Africa to be in there in the mix with you, enabling, and the key word there is not disabling access, it's enabling appropriate access to technology, because we understand by what principles we are working. We have agreed it with you. In Ghana, there's a lot of discussion happening with innovators, agreeing what the principles should be and how you want us to interpret it as regulators so that we can hold you accountable to what you agreed with us. And so that's what is happening. I just wanted to put that in so that we are in sync with each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's quite amazing that we had the keynote at the end of the session. Dr.
Yeah, I think maybe Lema, you can actually just take us through the Mentimeter.
All right, perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much. Dr. Njeri, a round of applause for her. Which is very quickly, I won't show the results here, but this is something very important to fill out, and I'll tell you why. At the end of this month, we're going to be meeting with the ministers of ICT, Trade, and Finance. And we're going to be sharing this feedback that you give us. So the survey that you fill today, we're going to be actually be plugging into those conversations. We had a conversation with them, the ministers of ICT, 2 weeks ago, and they came from across the African continent, even from Ghana and from Uganda and from Senegal. And we're going to be feeding back this same information. So take a moment, fill out the survey, and we'll be also feeding it back to you. And then lastly, I'm going to do this so that we can release you, is all of this information that you've seen today is available here on the handbook. We're going to be keeping this updated. You can take a screenshot or scan the QR code. It's going to be bit.ly/NADPA-AI-handbook. We're going to come out with a French version as well. Apologies for not having that right now, but we're going to come out with it. And yes, give us feedback. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming to this session and participating, and for everyone who made it. And have a great, I've been asked to let you to know that leave the interpretation systems on here. All right, perfect. Thank you so much.